Good evening, everyone. This is the regularly scheduled notice meeting of the ANC3C Public Safety Committee. I'm Rick Nash, one of the co-chairs, and joined by Commissioner Adam Prinzo, who also co-chairs. As noted, the meeting is being recorded, and although we make no decisions at this meeting, it's an important forum for both public input and to receive important information, including the MPD update that we will get shortly, and then to also make recommendations to the ANC. So appreciate everybody joining this evening. And if there are no questions, we'll proceed with our agenda. Okay, hearing none. The first item on our agenda is the update from the Metropolitan Police Department. And as noted, we're again joined by Captain Haskis and Lieutenant Johnson. We appreciate your being here and look forward to hearing the update on this activity as well as a case resolution within the respective PSAs that comprise our ANC area, especially the neighborhoods of Cleveland Park, Woodley Park, Massachusetts Avenue Heights, and the adjacent areas. And I'm sure there are going to be a number of questions, including on some of the unfortunate incidents that occurred just north of here. So with that, who would like to speak, Captain or Lieutenant Johnson?
Hey, Commissioners, Lieutenant Johnson. I started off with the crime stats for the last 30 days. Crime is actually down in 3C. I have the combined stats for 3C. Last month, same time last month, we had 96 crimes, but this year we had 56 crimes. So we're down 30 crimes. And that's driven mostly by the thefts. The thefts are down from 82 to 47 thefts in a 1 month time frame. And most of the thefts occurred at CVS's. We have package thefts occurring, and we encourage everyone to use our Amazon locker at 2D Station. If you have a package needed delivered that you don't want stolen, that's a secure location. You can have your package delivered right to our locker at in front of the station, and that's a secure location to get your package delivered. Now we had this month we had 47 thefts. We had 1 homicide, 1 robbery, 6 theft from autos, and 3 motor vehicle thefts. The homicide was as you know, the baby death that took place in, I believe that's Sedgwick Gardens, 9-month-old. It was a suspicious death with the rule of homicide, and homicides investigating that. No ADWs, no serious assaults in the last 30 days. That's excellent. So overall, the crime is down. Except for we had the 1 unfortunate homicide. We had the 1 robbery, which took place at on Cathedral Avenue at 3:00 in the morning. Victim was struck, and his book bag was stolen. Other than that, any questions about crime going on in 3C that we can answer?
I just wanted to clarify the incident on Avenue was assault with intent to rob. They went through the book bag but didn't take it. That's just the only clarification.
I just had a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I had a question. I saw on Twitter, which is obviously not the most reliable source of news, that there was an arson in the Woodley Park Business District. I believe it was 2 Thursdays ago with an umbrella that was intentionally set on fire. Is that true? Not true?
Well, that is true. That was unfortunate. That happened at the restaurant there in the 2600 block of Connecticut, one of the restaurants. There was a homeless lady that lit the umbrella on fire in the trash can, and she was suffering from a mental health episode, and she was FD12, which means we had emergency admit her to the hospital for treatment because she was going through a mental health episode. So it was a fire, but it was a trash can fire. And
Okay.
we made it's an arson, still an arson.
Yeah. Thank you.
You got it.
I guess the question I have is first, it's great that overall crime is down year over year in the relevant area, particularly thefts. I'm curious, what you attribute that to, including, especially focus or methods from police. And then I have a question on the homicide as well, which I'll hold.
Well, I asked the theft question for you. That's the hard work from our officers and detectives. We have also put 2 foot beats in Cleveland Park area at the CVS's and the Target and the CVS down in Woodley Park, the 2600 block of Connecticut. And officers have been out there on foot and checking those businesses and making arrests. We've zero tolerance for theft. We've been locking them up when we catch them. Also, the detectives been closing cases with those thefts. And also, our CST team has been doing retail theft operations ever since last year, and that's really brought it down. It's not zero. We want no crime, but it's definitely, as you can see, coming down, the thefts, due to hard work from the officers that we have at the 2nd District.
And are we only talking about thefts? I mean, so we're no robberies, no any other kinds of crime that were
There's one robbery at least.
right.
Yeah. I think the robbery, there's no change in robberies. We had one at the same time last year and one this year. So the
Okay,
robberies are almost the same.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on the homicide, so that's still under investigation, and I take it the medical examiner as well as yet to complete its report.
Yep, that's still an investigation by our homicide detectives, special victims unit. Anytime a young person like that can't speak, they're part of the special victims homicide branch, and they're investigating that case.
Do other members of the committee have questions on that?
I have a lot of questions, but I don't think they're MPD questions.
I see Cassandra has her hand up.
Thanks, Adam. What are the hours of the day that the foot beat is at the Target in Cleveland Park? Do you know?
Business hours, I believe it starts at the day work tour between 8 and all the way till the business is closed. But at night we have a foot beat in that area also. So almost, you might as well say 24 hours. We have officers assigned to those locations. When I say foot, you'll see a car there at night most of the time in case they have an emergency to respond to. So you'll see a car, they're really foot beat officers. But they have a car for emergency and for visibility at night to deter crime.
Thank you. The gym that is in that complex, the Sam's Park and Shop complex, emailed me over the weekend. I confess I haven't reached out because I was trying to not work over the weekend, but she said that someone climbed up on the roof and broke into the gym. I know that's how the people got into Paragon's High earlier this year. And so I'm just wondering, should I reach out to the property managers, the property owners to do something to secure the roof? It's becoming, I think this is the 2nd or 3rd time now that someone has entered those businesses through the roof. Thank you.
Do you know if they made a report about the gym? I'm not sure if we have that documented. Maybe
I don't know. Tomorrow when I'm back in the office, I'll reach out to her.
Yeah, please, if she has, please have her make a report so we can document that and investigate that crime.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Just a few.
Can I just go ahead? I'll just go ahead and ask my question. Sorry, I tried to stick the digital hand up, but how long are the foot patrols scheduled to continue at the locations that you mentioned?
Captain Hess would be best to answer that question. Are you on here, Captain? Can you enlighten
Uh,
us?
for as long as I am captain at the second district, there will be a foot patrol, special patrols at Woodley Park in the business district, and Cleveland Park in the business district.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I just want to convey appreciation of everyone who lives in those areas for the officers, you know, making everyone feel safe in their hard work. So thank you. I think those have been very effective in my personal experience and from what I hear from others.
Thank you. Yes, MPD has very much had good results from it, and we want people to feel safe visiting Woodley Park, go out, eat, buy things, both Woodley Park and Cleveland Park. So those things will remain in place indefinitely. If I could speak to things that your neighbors further up Connecticut Avenue and your neighbors in McLean Gardens are going through a bit, is a lot of theft from autos right now. We're worried. Woodley Park and Cleveland Park have not been hit so hard, which is a great thing, but I'm always worried that, you know, it could hit Cleveland Park or Woodley Park or in the ANC. Wheel thefts. So we really recommend like wheel locks and stuff. There have been some wheel thefts overnight, and also further up on Connecticut Avenue in the Forest Hills part, there was a catalytic converter theft yesterday. Only one, but I just worry about any emerging trends. So just be careful leaving valuables in vehicles. Be careful. Check on your vehicle. Park it in a fairly noticeable spot. But theft from autos have been a big worry in your adjoining ANCs. A big worry also in your ANC, but so far, I think Lieutenant Johnson has been doing a great job in the overnight hours for you all. And hopefully my worry is, you know, has little merit to my worries. But also package thefts as we get into the holiday season.
Yeah.
We are worried they'll jump up as well. So just be cognizant of that.
I just want to add for the wheel thefts, these have been later model vehicles, model years 23 and 24. So these are new cars with new wheels that they're targeting. So if your neighbors have a new car, a newer car they bought in year 22, 23, or 24, and just encouraging them to put wheel locks on their wheels, because these guys are going after the newer vehicles without the locks on them.
Well, thanks for that highlight. And yeah, I just want to add that, you know, I know the community and members of this committee, the ANC, and, you know, and I know I really appreciate all the focus and attention that you brought to this, particularly the foot patrols and the efforts of Lieutenant Johnson and your other colleagues, you know, at night and during the day, for all the reasons we've talked about, having visibility, a consistent presence, and, you know, ideally patrols on foot, I think is important both for crime reduction, but it just really does make the community feel safer and hopefully allows you to address some issues more proactively. I did have one question, although not technically in our ANC. The Glover Park commercial area is in PSA 204, and it's just to the southwest of our ANC area. What are you seeing in and around the Glover Park commercial district?
Glover Park is more. It's more like it's almost similar to Woodley Park. Their crime is basically thefts and theft from autos. I did a report for them last month. We only had 11 crimes in Glover Park, and they were thefts and theft from autos. I don't think we had any robberies to report or any serious ADWs in Glover Park this month. So just basically thefts and theft from autos is their major issues down that way.
And have those tended to be at night, or are they, you know,
But thefts
opportunistic
are retail thefts during business hours from the
Yeah.
CVS also, and they have a couple stores. They have the Harris Teeter, and they have the Whole Foods. But not a lot of theft. Whole Foods has an officer that works there,
Uh-huh.
but the CVS is always an issue. All CVSs have a theft problem, We're trying to get under control. But total crime, we had like 11, so it's not for a month. That's not really bad. That's theft models including thefts.
Okay. Are there other questions? Yeah, I guess my final question is, aside from these very helpful tips and suggestions on how people can, stay safer and particularly protect, around the holidays with package theft and theft from auto, both captain and lieutenant, how can we help you? How can the ANC be helpful?
Well, I just for me, just get information out to the constituents about, what we tell you about buying wheel locks and hiding items in their vehicles and not leaving things out in the open. Try to park in well-lit areas. I know that's kind of hard now, because a lot of dark areas in Woodley Park and Glover Park they have. Tunlaw Road is dark as well at night. But do the best you can as far as if you see something, say something, call the police right away. If you see a suspicious person in the area that doesn't belong around there, and have us come out and investigate. Don't approach these people on your own. Just call up the police and let us do it, and we'll do the best we can to stop, identify, and see what's going on in the areas. Anything to add, Captain? Any suggestions?
No, I think well said, Lieutenant Johnson. I'll just say, just communicate with us as much as you can. We want to know what people are not feeling safe, even if they're not reporting crimes. If they're afraid walking down a block, we want to know about it. We want to rectify things like that. Or if somebody's, something is deemed some kind of public safety issue, please let us know. And we appreciate you all spreading worries about emerging possible crime trends. So we can't be everywhere. So the most, precautions we all take really allow us to focus more of our efforts. We can't go down every side street for possible theft from auto, but if there's no point to going down a side street because of there's nobody leaving any kind of valuables visible, then that's one less we have to actively put people on, and we don't have resources.
Okay, thanks. If there are no other questions, just want to thank you both for calling in again and participating in this meeting, and thanks especially if anyone is calling in off hours. We really do appreciate it.
I just want to add, sir, 204 has an upcoming community walk on October 23rd. That's a Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to start the walk at 38th and Garfield Street Northwest. I'll put it in the chat so you don't have to remember this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Johnson.
All righty. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. Adam, are you taking the next agenda item?
I am. So I sent out a couple, like maybe an hour or so ago, a draft letter that the ANC will, I guess, consider at our, what month are we in? October meeting, about the continued failures at the Office of Unified Communications. It copies from both a resolution that we sent last September and 2 letters that were sent to all the council members from 100 plus ANCs from throughout the district. So I will open it up to discussion. Basically, what it says is that we are pressed to find a solution to the continued failures of our 911 call center. It references a incident where a 5-month-old baby was tragically lost because the parents of said child could not get in touch with 911 services. There have been other instances where calls have been dropped, calls have not been answered, people are on hold. I know Courtney, who sits on this committee, called me one day because she was on hold with 311 for 27 minutes. So I put that in there, as well as continuing to call for an independent task force to look into the 911 system, because the mayor and the council kind of don't seem to want to. And then I did just get some edits from Janelle that I will add. It's just basically every time I say OUC, just put /911 call center. So yeah, I will open it up. Elizabeth has her hand raised, so she can kick it off.
I do. Well, first of all, thank you all for being on this committee. I find it an incredibly frustrating committee to be part of. I find that my fellow committee members are not reachable, are not communicative. This letter that we would like to send and discuss, we first brought up at our last meeting a month ago, and it comes out at 5 o'clock before a 7 o'clock meeting on the same day, when I think we've all known what's going to be part of it for a very long time. And it just seems to me like the ANC knows what they want to do, and the committee is window dressing in a lot of ways. And I find that more than frustrating. And so, you know, if Adam and Janelle want to handle it independently, that's fine. I find these Zoom meetings where people are not even showing their faces to be deeply frustrating, because I feel like they listen along, but they're not really participating. And I find it a dysfunctional way to work. And so, you know, I think you've decided on the letter you want to send. Are you really looking for feedback at this point?
I mean, I'm always looking for feedback. I am sorry I'm not on camera. I am also helping my mother fix
Right,
some things
everybody
in her
else is
home.
doing other things, and it's the same for our whole ANC.
I am always looking for feedback on the letter. I am one person. I also have a full-time job. So trying to write this, I guess we had a month lead time, but I had to travel for work and I had to travel for personal reasons. And unfortunately, sometimes the things that don't pay my bills tend to fall to the bottom.
You know, listen, I'm sure everybody has reasons. I am just saying that it is not working well. If you actually care about public safety, what we have right now is not particularly functional. We don't even communicate with each other, never mind other people who live in the neighborhood. And I just think that here we are in our own 7-person circle jerk.
All right, I will start my video, Elizabeth. I guess I'll respond a little bit. Just so you know, I mean, there's one of the reasons we have committees is that we know as an ANC we cannot handle all these issues and all the different things, right? Like, so we have 7 different committees, and one of the reasons we formed these was we wanted to make the community members part of it. I will say though that I can tell you for the transportation committee, one of the reasons it works is that committee members actually take on responsibilities to help write stuff, right? So I think one of the things that can really help this committee is for all the committee members, not just the ANC commissioners. The ANC commissioners have to go to multiple meetings, like Adam said.
I have reached out to fellow committee members since last Thursday. The only person I've had a conversation with is Rick Nash on Sunday. I don't know what to tell you. I agree with you in principle. It's not working in practice.
But I mean, I guess, Elizabeth, you said you reached out last Thursday, right? And you said this was a month ago. I mean, on
a separate issue, on a very separate issue, but I tried to put it on the agenda for tonight and I have made no headway. So I am referring back to something we have purportedly been working on for a month. The draft appears 2 hours before the meeting, Swale. What do you want me to do with the 2 hours? Everybody's busy.
Elizabeth, all our meetings, the draft is meant to be discussed at the meeting. You put a first draft out.
Review ahead of time? Do you want to spend the meeting watching me read it?
Yes, people edit in real time. You should attend our transportation committee meeting. We literally edit drafts in real time. That's the whole point of the committee meeting. So we're not editing at the ANC meeting. The ANC meeting is the time where we get public feedback and everything.
But how far ahead do you get the draft?
Sometimes it's written at the meeting. This previous meeting, the draft was written at the meeting. Adam at least sent it to you before the meeting. We write drafts at the meeting when we're at these meetings. And I know that that's not the fastest way to work. please let me just finish my thought. I know that's not the fastest way to work. I'd love it if everyone sent drafts early on, but honestly, this is the time we have. If this committee didn't exist, you would be seeing drafts at the full ANC meeting. That's how it used to be. If you remember how it used to be, Commissioner McWood would read a draft at the full ANC meeting and ask everyone to vote on it. And I know we can always do better, and I appreciate the feedback. But at the same time, I think if drafts need to be written early, then other committee members need to take responsibility to get them submitted early on. It shouldn't just be on Adam to write a first draft.
I don't disagree with anything you've said, Swallow.
Okay.
There is nothing you have said that is incorrect.
Okay. But I think at this point, like, you know, if people want to edit the draft right now, I think it's perfectly fine to do it at the meeting. You have a whole hour at this meeting. I don't see why the draft can't be edited right now. And I think the fact that Adam
It probably can't be.
Yeah, so let's edit the draft right now.
You know, when everybody tells me how busy they are, 2 hours is not really enough to read something and think about it too hard.
It's not a long letter. It can be read right now in 5 minutes.
I mean, look, in hindsight, all of us can be more timely, but I would just echo the fact that, Commissioner Prinzo is taking the laboring oar on this. And, my own view is it's a good letter, but, the essential element is we would be asking the commission to set up, or the council rather, to set up a independent 911 review task force. And then we're pointing out to them, as well, where there's not been follow-up to the previous ANC letters. So, that's the essence of it. And if, committee members feel that there's more that we should be pushing for, or it doesn't go far enough, but, the rest of the letter, I think, does a good job documenting the sorry and tragic incidents that have occurred in our ANC area and more generally with 911 service.
I mean, I'm happy to share the letter on my screen here. And if we want to talk about it, we can talk about it. If we want, I mean, we can also just let it sit until November. I mean, I know Councilmember Pinto's hearings are running through the end of the year. So, I mean, I'm open to feedback. I apologize. It was only 2 hours before, but.
I think that we should be timely. I think that it is better to send it sooner than later, especially if we're doing an ask. But I would request that the committee be more responsive more quickly, please. If there's if you would like to talk about issues, some response rather than things into the ether, and having things ahead of time to look at a little bit. A day ahead is not a crazy ask. And Adam, I thought it was a good letter. I did read it. I read it, but by luck, I, checked my email a couple hours before our meeting. So thank you for doing it. I have no truck with the actual outcome. I have a lot of problems with our current processes. I thought your letter was good.
I mean, the essence of the letter is the paragraph that begins "time is of the essence." And my question for the committee members is, are there other substantive points that at this point, this committee and this ANC should be pushing on now? Because it's mostly one of urging the task force and then urging follow-up and implementation of the items that the ANC has previously called out, going back now over a year ago in September of 2023. Michael, I wasn't sure whether you have your hand up or not.
Sorry.
Mitchell, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm sorry for the IT difficulties tonight. So first, I just want to thank the commissioners, Prinzo and other, for your work on the letters, and thank Commissioner Pagets for the robust back and forth by email. I found all of that really helpful. And I recognize that, you all are serving in an unpaid and sometimes thankless position on behalf of the community, and appreciate that. In terms of the letter, echo the sentiment of others that it's a good letter. If we were going to take Commissioner Siddiqui's invitation to sort of edit by committee in real time, the only minor suggestion I had was, and if this is just copying language from somewhere else, then I'm fine to leave it. But there was a reference to the mayor and council, I think, not being able to solve the problem. And I don't know whether they're able to or not, but I think the issue seems like they're not committed to solving the problem. And so I might suggest that one edit, but that was all I had. Thank you.
That's actually fine with me. I will change that to committed. I actually think it's better language anyway.
Elizabeth, is your hand still up?
Oh, sorry, no.
Other input or suggestions on the letter? Well, Adam, I also thought it's good and does the job, and I would agree that we're better off submitting it sooner rather than waiting till November.
Okay, and I mean, we are noticing the meeting today for next Monday, so that doesn't preclude if anybody has any changes between now and when we vote on it to just email me, and or just make them. I made you all editors of the document, so if you make an edit in the Google Doc, I will get an email and it will just prompt me to review your change, but it should appear right away anyway.
And what's the date you think optimally this comes out after it's voted on at the ANC meeting?
So once it's voted on, our meeting is next Monday. It should probably be in the council record. Councilmember Pinto had a hearing about a week or so ago. I believe the record is open until the 23rd. And if not, there is another hearing scheduled for later on in October or early November. I don't have the date off the top of my head, but it can go in that record as well. It could just, quite honestly, every time she calls a hearing on OUC, there's nothing precluding us from adding this letter to the record each time. I know Commissioner Pagets went to testify the last hearing in person. So it can essentially, once we voted on it, it can go to the council. It also doesn't preclude us from, for another hearing on this issue if we wanted to amend and or write amend or write another letter to send it to Councilmember Pinto. We could do that as well.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on this item, or Adam, did you have anything more to add on OUC or 911 or any other related issues?
The only other thing that I wanted to add, if you do have, like, I know Courtney, who's not here today, was trying to get to the bottom of some helicopter noise that was happening around her home. She was on hold with 311 for about, I think she told me 27 minutes. I was able to just call the MPD 2D line. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying if you're on hold for 311 because, like the tree is down or, something happened that's not like urgent. I don't want to like not say urgent, but if it's not like something, Courtney wasn't feeling safe to leave her home because of the helicopters, you can always call the MPD 2D line. They usually will answer before 311. Maybe sometimes when you have a crime that's currently being committed or has just recently been committed, always call 911. But just know that you can always reach out to them directly if you have like a question, like there's helicopters circling, or I had a question about there was a very large police presence in front of the M&T Bank a couple weeks ago, so I called them to kind of get some clarity on that. So you can always call them if it's just like a very simple question. But if you do encounter like long wait times, please do let me know, because we can always go back, and if we decide to either write another letter or amend this letter for the next OUC oversight hearing, we can include examples in it of like, hey, somebody on our ANC called, they let us know that they were on hold for almost a half hour. So, definitely do keep us in the loop on your 911, 311 issues, just so we are aware of them. And then the only other thing I wanted to flag is that Councilmember Pinto is also doing unannounced visits to OUC call centers. So just keep up if you are on Twitter, which again is not the best source of information sometimes. But if you are on Twitter, make sure if you are interested in keeping up with her travels to the various OUC call centers, make sure you follow her, because like I said, they are unannounced. So I happened to just see it on Twitter that she was popping into one. I believe it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I think she's putting the recaps of them in her newsletter too.
Okay. I don't get her newsletter.
I also put in the chat copterspotter.com so you can spot your own copters.
Okay, thanks for that. So moving on to the next part of the agenda, Elizabeth had reached out, and as you noted, when we had the MPD report, there is much to discuss on this tragic homicide, the child just north of us. And the police have it under investigation, of course. But Elizabeth, you want to talk both about the work of the Cleveland Park Community Association on, calling for the Department of Behavioral Health to, be subject their own contractors to an audit?
Exactly. Well,
because there are a lot of issues around this that go beyond, the incident.
There are some that are neighborhood specific and there are some that are city specific, truly. Yes, there are 2 children who have recently, their deaths have been charged as homicides on the Connecticut Avenue Strip. There are also a number of buildings that have had children injured but not die. There's child cruelty, there's child abuse, there's all kinds of very unhappy situations, both for the children themselves and their whole families. And the CPCA's Public Safety Committee has been trying to figure out where pressure might be put to make things to work for improvements. And the area we have identified is that there are many people who are living in these apartments who are receiving subsidies of some form or another, and who are really not getting the support and services that they're entitled to and that they deserve. And if you read some of the accounts of the things that have happened, it's not just a crisis for the children. Their adults are in crisis as well, and they deserve more than that they're getting from the city. And where we think that some headway might be made is requesting an audit. Probably Robert White and Matt Fruman, who are the city council members best poised to do this, but of the contractors who the Department of Behavioral Health has hired to oversee case management for these families, to make sure that there is actual contact being made. It seems that it's acceptable right now to have 4 contacts within 2 months, only 1 in person. And it is also acceptable to, try and call, and if the call doesn't go through, it doesn't get followed up on. And, the promise has been made to these people that they will be helped to thrive should they be housed. We're supposed to be a housing first city, but we're not following the principles that go along with that to help people successfully transition into permanent housing. And so where I hope the ANC might be able to help is amplifying the voice for more robust supervision of the case managers, and an audit of how they're conducting their work. Their files are often not reviewed, they're not looked at, and only get pulled out if there's a real problem. And in the meanwhile, resources are not being depleted. Most people who live in supportive housing do not need all of this help, but the people who do really do. And I can share with the committee later where the CPCA is about to finalize its letter to the council members requesting that, and I would be happy to share. But I think that as neighbors, we can do better by people. And, if we're the Public Safety Committee, we owe it to everybody to look out for and protect the interests of everybody who's living in this neighborhood. And there you go. I will.
Do you put the letter in the chat?
I don't know how to do that, but I can send it to everybody.
Email
Also,
them.
I probably feel more comfortable after it's finally, the CPCA has its final look at it. I understand, we can share our letter, and that we have, I think Janelle said till Friday for our committee to write a letter, but I would, do people think this is important at all?
I mean, I think it's quite important. Small has his hand up as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to send a letter, and I mean, I think this has been a long thing that has manifested itself through different events, right? Like trying to get some of these ideas and stuff. I would say one thing we can include, and I'm happy to send language on this, is the idea of helping buildings develop tenant associations. I know the building on Macomb Street was dealing with a lot of issues of, residents not getting the help they needed and things like that. And then once they formed a tenant association, it was helpful to also be able to pressure different government agencies. So yeah, I'm happy to send around language for that if anyone wants it. But I think telling the government to help with tenant association would also be helpful.
I think that that's an interesting thing. I think that here, though, a specific ask for an audit of DBH's contractors is a very targeted and achievable goal.
Agreed.
And I agree with you. I think that Evelyn Brewster is the head of that tenants association, by the way, and it's a little bit tricky. She's in a risky position with her job and doing that. So, I agree with you. I think that's a separate ask.
Pegas.
Yeah, I think an audit can be part of the request, but I think it should be multi-pronged and call for the oversight hearings from the various committees responsible for these different agencies, rather than assume that the problem is with the contractors. Whoa, let me finish, please. Let's call the agency directors in front of council where they're sworn in, and we can give the council members the questions that the ANC has for the agency heads. I think that having more asks in this, and not just assuming an audit will solve everything, because there could be backup legislation that's happening from the various council members' offices, remembering that there's a lot of at-large council members that are on these committees.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Janelle, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't believe for a second that an audit will begin to solve everything. I just think it's an achievable, measurable goal. And sometimes by casting, I'm not disagreeing with your idea either. I think if you look at the Forest Hills ANC, they're having quite a robust meeting, in fact, tomorrow night, with a lot of the responsible agencies present. I just think sometimes when you cast a huge net, the buck gets passed again and again. And because it's such a big problem to solve, I think that sometimes it's not a terrible thing to target piece by piece by piece and work on making things better by shoring up specific pieces of a very large puzzle. I think that it is not a terrible thing at all to ask for a lot of agencies to get involved. But, you know, if we, well, you know, what Trayon White said was, you know, there's, if you want to look at a big pot of money in the city, it's the mental health services. You know, there's a lot of auditing that needs to happen right now. And I think that if this ANC would like to take on a much, much bigger ask, I would fully support that. I still think it should be agency by agency, piece by piece, so that at least it's measurable and there are metrics that people can look at, because saying fix the problem, I think, is just going to be like spitting into the wind.
Well, again, that's the whole point of going to council, where it's their job, the council members and their staff's job, to hold the agencies to account. I don't know which agencies are the problem, but they have a better idea of which ones they can call into the room where a record is produced. A record is not produced at ANC3F's meeting. That's just going to be, I don't think that's going to be productive at all. I think that going the oversight route, which is the avenue that's been carved out to solve issues like this, which is what we've been seeing with Office of Unified Communications, where Councilmember Pinto finally, you know, took action after that 5-month-old died. So maybe this is the impetus. It's not like we haven't seen success with the well, it hasn't been fully successful yet, but at least it's more progress than not. I mean, there was an auditor's report for OUC that didn't really help at all. So let's go a different route this time, because that clearly didn't work the first time. So I think it's just pigeonholing and just assuming that certain agencies are the ones that are behind this. I don't know, and I'd like to hear council call more of them to an oversight.
Adam, your hand is up.
So I'm not opposed to sending a letter, either a broad letter or a more targeted letter, or somewhere in the middle. I do think there is a more formal ness to dragging these directors before council, because like Janelle said, they have to be sworn in before council, and so therefore, you know, they have the essentially tell the truth. Not that they wouldn't tell the truth at an ANC meeting, but you know, when you're in a more formal setting, you might be a little more inclined to be more truthful. And I also think she is right on the other point of, you know, like they, you know, we can invite them to come to a public safety meeting. The chances of them having an open and more honest discussion about some of their failures would more likely happen in before council, because they know that either A, there's an audience watching, B, there's a record being established, or C, that these council members, it's their full-time job to follow up on, why aren't you doing your job, which we've come to realize is kind of, I guess, a requirement to work at the Bowser administration. So I'm not opposed to either a more broad, as Elizabeth's point is on, you know, like, hey, I'm sorry, more broad on Janelle's point, or even just asking for the one thing, as Elizabeth said, and then seeing like how long it takes council to even drag these directors up to council. I do think Matt Fruman assumed responsibility for some of these agencies with this whole reshuffle that the council did recently. So I am not opposed to sending a letter. I'm very in support of it. My only question for anybody on this committee is, if somebody can get a draft to us by Friday, I'm not opposed. I mean, I can work with anybody to help write it. I just can't write the whole thing myself. If you could get it to us by Friday, I'm not opposed to voting on it at our meeting. I don't know how the other 8 of us feel. But I would just throw that out there.
I guess,
Now,
you
what's
know,
your vision on who, how far this net goes?
I mean, I'm not opposed to asking for an audit of DBH's contracts with their vendors and also saying maybe OTA should get involved with forming a tenants association. I mean, I am, dealing with my own tenant issues with my landlord, and they've been extremely helpful. So, and I happen to think that they might be, besides the DMV, one of the most well-run machines in the executive office of the mayor. Um, so maybe you marry those two and start with those two, or because I understand when you say that like asking for everything at one time, it might just, kick the can down the road, because we have seen that also. So maybe taking a more targeted but broad approach in, I want an audit of DBH's contracts. I want OTA to kind of like get involved also with helping these people form tenants associations. And even something as simple as why did it take so long for CPS or what's Child Protection Services to get involved in that one case, I believe that you mentioned. I've only seen the two on Connecticut Avenue. I think you mentioned there was a third.
I think that, I think that there are several cases of child harm that don't result, that do not result in death, that are ongoing. There are families that have been identified as being very unhappy for the children and possibly dangerous who are living in them. And again, that is the purview of social workers and making sure that there are other supports. And so a lot of those are private too, they're not crimes, they're ongoing open cases essentially.
No. But I'm also not opposed to asking, if you want to go the DBH route, I'm not opposed to asking council to ask DCPS, like, hey,
I'm
how
very happy to work with you, Adam,
Yeah,
like if
no,
you'd like to work for the rest,
yeah,
I would be
sent you my
delighted.
number. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would be super happy to work with you on this. Thank you.
I sent you my number, so send me a text. But I
Did
mean,
you?
I'm not opposed to.
You sent me your email, I think.
But in the email is my phone number.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not opposed to asking, like, in this letter, well, where's DCPS? Because I mean, hopefully, as we all know, that might not be the case, but hopefully these kids are coming to school at least maybe 3 times a week if they are truant, or however many times they do show up at school. But like, why isn't DCPS getting involved? Even they should be getting involved. Let's say the kids don't show up to school. Why aren't they getting involved and proactively reaching out with these other government agencies? And if they are, why isn't it working?
Right. I mean, you're asking excellent questions. There are just many, many of them. And I think that, agency by agency, they should be questioned. You're quite correct. The particular cases we're talking about recently are very little children. They're 1 in 5. So, and it's very early in the school year, by the way.
Well, that's why, hearing this, I think an approach that's complementary makes sense with, CPCA sending this letter targeted on audits. Again, the audits strike me as a sensible idea. Perhaps the ANC can
How do
echo
we
that
support these
request,
families?
but put, the emphasis on having oversight hearings as well as the tenant association support. And maybe there are other things. I mean, I think this is probably the first of what's likely to be, a continued effort over next months. Janelle's hand is up.
Yeah, I guess I'm just lost on why we know the problem is sitting within the Department of Behavioral Health, because there are several other underlying divisions within that. So to request an audit for just the one, thinking that it's definitely Department of Behavioral Health and not Child and Youth Protective Services or some other agency that sits alone, not under that one. I guess is where I'm lost in how that assumption.
Janelle, I don't, Janelle, honestly, I don't think, I think that we're miscommunicating with each other. I don't think that it is just the Department of Behavioral Health at all. I think these are such complex problems, and every single situation is very different, and there are multiple people being supported or purportedly supported by multiple different agencies. This proposal is not a fix-all. It is a piece of the puzzle, but I think one of the things that is quite well known is that families that need contact with support are not getting the contact's not being made, and it seems to be being acceptable. I don't believe for a minute that we've identified the only problem and that fixing it, will solve everything. This is a piece of a very large puzzle, but it seems that the percentage of families that need strong case management and support, and probably multi-agency thinking about them, are not getting it, and they're entitled to it, and this is an effort to try to help them. And one of the first lines of doing that is the human contact with people who can offer them services. Their gateway to getting more help. But you're right. I mean, this is not going to fix anything. It is a piece that is currently not being done in a robust, sensitive, and timely manner, and it could be improved a great deal.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Sorry.
I'm just saying that like some of this actually sits under the Office of the Attorney General too, with what they provide regarding family services on their end, which I feel like a lot of people probably don't know about unless they're actually using these services. So there's that too. Because maybe I know a little bit more about that. I don't think targeting one agency, that's why I'd rather have the oversight where the council members are more aware of who's responsible for what, where, and what needs to be looked at for improvement. And that's why I'd rather start with oversight.
You don't think that they can happen simultaneously, Janelle?
Not in an efficient and effective manner, no.
So then would you like to take this on?
I'm making the suggestions and educating the committee on how to go about this. I'm not offering to take it on, and I'm happy to help like edit and add and change things, but
I feel like you've just told us what to do.
I'm participating as a member of this committee in the discussion. If you don't like what I'm suggesting, you don't need to take my suggestions at all, and run with whatever, or I can add them later. I'm just trying to offer solutions that I think would be realistically effective in the larger scheme of what we're all trying to achieve. I don't know why that is causing such defensiveness.
I don't think it's defensive, Janelle. I think that, again, I've been trying to get in committee engagement for a number of days since this death was reported. And here we are at this meeting a number of days later.
Elizabeth, when does CPCA expect to finalize and send its letter?
Hopefully within this week. And that's separate, you know, that's just something that we've been working on. But again, you know, Janelle, do you know Faith Mullen? Anyway, Faith Mullen is a landlord tenant lawyer, very much on the tenant side, and is deeply, deeply supportive of the plight of tenants, the right of tenants, and has spent her whole career working to support underprivileged Washingtonians, and is deeply, deeply informed with their involvement within the court system, and is a really good source of information for how this might be approached in a way that would lead to solutions, because it's easy to be a problem identifier. It's much harder to be a problem solver, and looking for places that inroads might be made is probably a good thing to do. There's no defensiveness involved at all. Adam, should we just try and work on this letter and then get it to the rest of the committee for their
I was
comments?
gonna
They can
say,
add what they like.
I will send you an email, or if you shoot me a text, I will respond. If you want to meet like Wednesday, because I am flying back to DC tomorrow. At the library, we could probably draft a letter and then
Sure, I don't have, okay, super. Thank you. And then Janelle, your edits would be most welcome.
So do you want me to put this on the regular agenda for this month?
When do you need to know that by?
now.
Right now?
Um,
I think it's fine to pass it next month. Because the council there, okay. So a new council term starts January 1st anyways. So the
Okay.
odds of them having any of the hearings and all of that done this calendar year is not at all likely. So, and the committee chairs potentially can be reassigned, and will likely be reassigned, for the next council term. So I think we can work on it, pass it in November, and then we can reissue it in January if we need to for the new council term.
That seems like a very reasonable compromise, and thank you for thinking of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, it gives us both the benefit of having the final CPCA letter as well as any information that comes out, you know, at the meeting that the other ANC is having this week.
That's fine with me. I was gonna just say, we can either, Elizabeth, we could either work on it this week, or if we're voting on it until next month, we could work on it. I would say like Monday, Tuesday of next week as well.
At your convenience, Adam, we can figure that out.
Yeah,
If it's not,
and
if it's
then-
not pressing, we can figure it out. And
Well, so I just would like to get it out to the, you know,
fair enough.
all of us, so we could at least get some feedback on it, and then we can even discuss it next month too. And then vote on it. I think I don't know when our November meeting is, but we could do it that way.
Okay. We'll work, you and I can work it out, the first draft together, all right?
Works for me.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other issues to raise? Cassandra, you've been with us the whole meeting. Do you have anything that you want to raise? If you're trying to speak, I think you're muted.
I love the
But,
purple tree.
Are you
In the
talking to me?
flower pot. Yeah, the purple
Yeah.
tree.
Sorry, my dog started barking at the exact moment you were talking, so.
I know
you
the
repeat?
feeling. No, I was just saying you've stuck with us this whole meeting and just wanted to see if there's anything that you wanted to raise on behalf of the Main Street organization.
Just what I've raised earlier about that Sam's Park and Shop, getting people climbing up on the roof and breaking in. So I emailed Daga after just to see if she had filed a report. So I can let you know that probably by the end of the week.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep.
Any of the committee members?
I just wanted to say 8 to 10 stories of housing on top of the Sam's Park and Shop would probably prevent people from breaking into the ground floor retail.
I might. That's definitely a possibility, but that would take a while to build. So we need something in the meantime as well. So
Are there either private or public cameras still going there? I know that there was a hoo-ha as to whose camera that was. Is there any kind of surveillance there at all at this time?
I get the feeling that there's not, but I don't know for sure. I can reach out to first I want to talk to Daga, and then I'll talk to the property manager just to see what they're doing in terms of safety. So do you have an idea?
The city's camera program has a pretty robust reimbursements for businesses that put in cameras. And I understand after the last incidents at the Park and Shops that most businesses don't have them. And they really could have them largely funded if they chose.
They have them inside.
Okay.
What they don't have is any kind of alarm system or exterior cameras. So like the people that broke into, like smashed the windows in Paragon Thai when they had their break-in, I mean, they're all on camera. So that's not the issue. But if one of them had an alarm, that might have scared them away. So
Is the Chase Bank cooperative at all? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure they have like very enhanced security because it's a bank.
And what you're
Well,
what
I'm just assuming like if they would, I would assume or at least hope that they would have exterior cameras.
I don't know. I'll go talk to the manager and ask him.
I
So
would think, it seems to me, and this is just a guess, that Chase's must be having problems because essentially they've closed their ATM except during open banking business hours. So you can't get any money on Sundays. You can't get it after the bank closed on Saturdays. You can't get it after hours, like after 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So I'm going to think that that bank has made a security call that their ATM in the alcove is not defensible, and they just close it when the bank's not open. It's a little tricky, but it's no longer really 24/7 money. It's
And a
you might
lot
as
of,
well just
I
go to
will
the
say a
bank.
lot of banks do that to prevent people from moving in to that vestibule.
Right.
Well,
After all that problem at Wells Fargo up on Wisconsin Avenue.
yeah, I need to stick my dog up there. He would be on the ball. So he's barking left and right. No, other than that, I haven't heard any complaints lately. So
It seems like things are, for the moment, on
okay.
that front pretty good.
Shit, I knocked on the thing and now my dog. Anyway, Scout, that's enough. So that's all from me.
I
Okay,
will
thanks.
reiterate that I like your purple tree.
Oh, thanks. It changes colors. I had 3 of them, but I think I'm down to 1. So it's purple this week.
Any other items that committee members want to raise?
The only thing I just wanted to raise before we left is there was a bank robbery that occurred at the M&T Bank, directly opposite the Woodley Park Metro.
Really?
That has since resolved, and I believe the person was arrested and is being held. They only stole $170, which, I mean, I guess is a lot of money, but also seems trivial to now spending X amount of months in prison. But and apparently the gentleman had a home and lived in Montgomery County, Maryland. So
And he tapped in and out of the metro system.
and he did. He paid his fare.
Hey, so there is that.
Seems just very trivial, but I would just
Well,
want to
bank robbery is a federal crime, and
yes. Oh,
from
true.
what I read, sometimes you know, some bank robbers make a true profession and they have their methods.
But it very interestingly, he robbed the bank with a face covering, from what was relayed to me by the M&T Bank manager. And the photos that went out on the MPD website when he was tapping, or the MPD Twitter, when he was tapping in and out of the metro system, he was not wearing a face covering. I don't know if he didn't realize that there were a lot of cameras in the metro system, but I just thought that was also very interesting.
Well, I'm glad they caught him, and while it may not seem like a lot of money, you know, a quick resolution of one theft is helpful, because you know, then other businesses and people feel more secure. You know, if banks are being robbed, then other businesses, for the reason I mentioned, are more vulnerable to other kinds of theft. So good, at least that this is being addressed. Okay, if there's nothing else, are you all right with adjourning?
Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you.
Be in touch,
Stand
Adam.
adjourned.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Good night.
Night.